The nice pixies. As everyone knows, pixies live at the bottom of a garden in a hole in the ground. And, of course, they only come out at night, sleeping during the day, as their nocturnal adventures exhaust them. However, they are very fussy which garden they choose. They don't like to have direct interaction with humans. Consequently, the home for this particular family, numbering a dozen or more, had to be well hidden, so they chose a property where the homeowner didn't have visitors and a part of the garden that no one went to. Just like others of their kind, these pixies like to cause trouble to humans, this taking the form of minor pranks. When there was a high wind, they would leave a garden gate open so that it banged in the breeze and awoke the owner. Alternatively, they might dance on a roof to give the impression that it was raining. However, their favourite was to choose a piece of grit that was so small that it couldn't be seen by a human eye and jam it into a car tire's valve. This would slowly deflate it and cause great inconvenience to the driver. Glendon and Flaxen, however, were home pixies. It was their job to spend the night preparing a meal in readiness for when their family returned from its night of hijinks. They were both good friends, but were quite different from the rest of their clan. They didn't enjoy indulging in the practical jokes that the others perpetrated. Instead, although they were kept very busy, they always found a moment for themselves, preferring to sit by the kitchen fire for a quiet chat and a cup of hot chocolate. The group had just moved to this garden as their previous residence had been built over as part of a new housing development. On this particular evening, Glendon and Flaxen had to go outside at a very late hour to gather some twigs for their fire, when they noticed that the house owner was still up. The duo flew over to look through the lounge window from where a light shone and saw the elderly gentleman sitting on his own. He was clearly heartbroken, tears streaming down his cheeks as he stared intently at the picture of a lady. He could be heard muttering in a low moaning sound, saying how he wished his beloved Sylvia hadn't died and left him all on his own. He didn't know how he could continue in such solitude. Glendon and Flaxen were very upset to witness such suffering, especially as the festive season was so close. So they decided to return the following evening to see if the mature fellow was still experiencing such grief. They nervously approached the house and peered through the glass, and were dismayed to see that he was still sitting on his own in the same chair, crying. They felt extremely anxious as they returned to their home. Tomorrow was Christmas, which was meant to be a happy time, yet the poor chap was going to be miserable and alone. It so happened that that evening, before the mischievous pixies set off on their adventures, they held a meeting to assess whether they wanted to stay in their current home or start to look for another one. Haddon was the oldest member, so he was in charge. He carefully went around all the family members to get their views, and then summarized for everyone's benefit what he thought the consensus was. The whole group wanted to stay, as it was lovely and peaceful, with no chance of them being disturbed. At the end, Glendon asked if she could speak on another matter, a request that Haddon gladly granted. She told everyone how Flaxen and her had found the old gentleman sitting in his chair, crying. He was obviously very lonely, so she asked if there was any way that their rule of remaining invisible to humans could be broken on this occasion. It seemed such a shame that their mature host should spend a solitary Christmas in such distress. A vote was taken in which they all agreed to spend the night in the gentleman's house and keep him company. Haddon led the troop as they flew across the garden and in through the letterbox. They could easily see where he was sitting as a light came into the hall through the open door. One after the other they flew into the room and floated round his chair. As he saw them enter, his face lit up with a huge smile. Glendon and Flaxen were proud of their family. They had done something nice to help someone instead of the trouble they normally caused.